So I think you all know what the main topic of this interview is, and that is how to survive linear algebra.
Uni is important, getting good grades are important, but your well-being is more important.
I think the nice thing as well with the course is the layout is pretty easy to follow.
You just want to make sure you understand what was covered that week, and then you're good to go for the next week and progress from then on.
If you leave it by the end, before assessment, I don't think a person would make it.
And sometimes, like, in my free time, you know, I'll watch math videos on YouTube. But anyway, that's a very fun word, by the way, parallelepiped.
So just in general, how do you prepare for assignments?
I suppose probably like making sure that your background is really there. So your definitions, your theorems. I also like having a cheat sheet type thing of what are the key core facts of things. I think assignments are quite different from exams in terms of the preparation that you do. It's kind of less like you're preparing up to a moment and more once you get the questions, that's when the work mainly begins. In terms of like my thing for exam revision, I would say start early as you can to reviewing concepts. Work throughout the semester. Don't leave it to yourself that is living off of energy drinks and no sleep towards the end of the semester because you haven't done the work in week 2. You know, look after your future self and prep for them. Other than that, do the tutorial questions, do the past papers, know the key concepts, write out summary sheets, and make a timetable. What I tend to do is like make a spreadsheet, start from the exam date and work backwards. So how much time have I got? What are my key things? When am I going to fit it in? And making sure that I give myself time to exercise and sleep.
Yeah, I think I agree that probably the most important thing that you can do is just try and keep things consistent throughout the semester. You know, it's very hard to catch up if you leave things to last minute. I guess in a way that is kind of an unfortunate truth. As long as you do keep things consistent, I don't think it matters who you are. I think as long as that is something you can do, you have a decent shot at doing well. I mean, you have tutorial questions to work with, you have past paper questions to work with, and I think if you do all those, typically nothing on an exam should be something that's very scary or very new to you, and you should be fairly comfortable with it. Something that I find helpful with assignments in particular is I don't think I typically start working on the questions like as soon as I get them. What I often find myself doing is I just kind of I'll like have a look at the questions and I'll like, okay, that's the questions. Maybe I have like a week to think about them, so I'll just say, okay, that's them, and maybe like throughout the day I'll like try passively thinking about the questions. What are some ideas that could apply to maybe this particular question? What kind of things is this question likely to be asking about? Maybe while you passively think about it, you kind of build an idea of how you might approach the questions so that when it actually comes down to sit down with them, whenever you decide to do that, you probably already have a good idea of what you might actually want to do and where you're going with it.
So for me, the tutorials and the lecture notes were probably my main source of revision. Like I just go through them thoroughly. I probably read the tutorials because they're all very much linked to what you're going to face in the assignment. So you're not too scared when you're going through that.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing to do. Even if those exact questions don't come up, there's always an understanding in them that if you make sure that you grasp that, when you get to the assignment, you'll be better prepared.
In my case, so before exam or assessment, I was working, and the period before assessment or exam, I was just having rest. I did not revise anything, so that these ideas will get digested properly, and I have a clear mind to do the exam. I agree with Daniel, what he said. What helped for me was after I play Ultimate Frisbee, I would return back and I could like finish one pointedly every some question. I don't know, it was just like exercise works so well for me. I think for many people it works like this also.
Do you look back at the solutions of an assignment, or are you like, okay, I'm done, I will never care again?
Yeah, I'll just kind of look where I drop marks and I'll be like, oh no, why did I drop marks there? And then, I'll look at the solution because I feel like on a level that kind of bothers me to like see that I've lost marks on some part, and I'll be like, why did that happen? you know, and I just have to know, you know. So that's kind of, and I mean with tutorial questions as well. I mean, if you're gonna sit and do a tutorial question, I feel like it could feel a little bit odd to just like go through a tutorial question, do what you think was right, and then not actually bother to if what you did is actually any good. I mean, unless you're particularly confident on what you've done.
Yeah, I think it's really important to look at the solutions as well to figure out where you could have got marks and you just missed a simple trick or something like that. So it's really important to kind of look at the solutions and understand the marking scheme and how it works, and you kind of know what to expect for the next assignment almost.
It's definitely helpful to just see different methods of doing stuff as well, because even if you've gotten something right, there's another way to do it. And you might find that in the mark scheme, there's actually a quicker way to have done it. So when you get to the exam, if the same thing comes up, you're not going to spend hours doing it. Because for the assignments, I mean, we had 2 weeks, but you won't have 2 weeks to do your exam. So you might have spent an entire 3 days on one question and gotten it right eventually. But if you're going to do that in an exam, you're not going to get it right.
I will pretty much always write a list of what I've gotten wrong in terms of facts. So if there's like a key bit that I've missed out or something that I should have written differently or anything like that, I'll write that in a list because I don't trust my memory for those things. I like to just have a piece of paper so that when I come back to doing the next assignment, I've got that there from past me to tell me not to do the same thing again.
Okay, so just for someone who may be starting in first year and thinks maybe university is a bit different, or mathematics in general, writing mathematics is a bit different, could you maybe say 1 or 2 strategies of yourself that you have to get maximum marks out of a given assignment or exam? And then we can move on.
In my experience, I think the best is to be consistent and limit entertainment as much as possible, because entertainment takes a lot of mental energy. I mean, when I'm doing some assignment, I got completely off from social media, so I'm like focused on this thing. This keeps me very consistent and very focused.
I would say for assignments, remember to write all of your definitions and theorems. So why is this the case? It's by theorem 2.24 or whatever. I think Jan's really correct. Do be consistent throughout the semester. That's what's going to help you the most. I typically try and do it so that, like, I say to myself, I'm going to work for this long and then I'm going to have an hour on Netflix, because then it's almost time for bed. What do they say? You know, when it's like a treadmill with a donut at the end, then like even if I don't want to do what I'm doing, then I'm doing it because I know that if I finish this, I'm going to get to watch Stranger Things. And temporarily that motivates me. If you're really self-disciplined, then you can set like timers on your phone to tell you to get off after like 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
I think when it comes to studying maths in like university, one of the things that you begin to get used to is having to justify everything you do. A lot of people, when say coming out from high school, learning math in high school, a lot of that is kind of remembering how to do things, how to get to an answer, but maybe you don't necessarily get used to actually justifying why what you're doing gets you to the correct answer. I almost kind of think about it like a debate. Like you're trying to convince somebody else. So you have some idea of something you think is correct, and you have to actually debate someone and convince them why you're right. And the way you do it is like, you know, I know that X is true, and because X is true, this implies that Y is true. You don't just immediately assume that Y is true, if that's one way to put it.
Yeah. I think it's like one of the like main mathematics degree in bachelor's, to learn to justify and to learn to reason properly, so that makes sense actually to other people. So I think it's quite important.
I think a big part of doing, say, like a math degree, maybe a lot of people might not realize at first, is that it's kind of about learning how to form an argument. It's like the art of logical reasoning and argument. You're basically learning how to justify things that you believe in. It's quite a transferable skill.
Yeah, logic is also a skill which you learn. It's not like somebody's born being logical and somebody is not. I think you can learn it through other ways, but I think maths is the most straightforward discipline.
So have you actually reached out to other students from different years? For example, through maybe the Maths Cafe?
Yes, I have reached people from Maths Cafe for my mental support during the linear algebra study. I didn't really ask questions. I just was there to have somebody to talk with.
Yeah, I've been in a Maths Cafe little bit as well. I think it's a nice place. I'd recommend anybody join there. I mean, that's one place in particular that we have that has kind of a good sense of community. Like, it's kind of just a collection of other people who study maths and like maths and just hang out together.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to do that. I didn't know very many people to do that sort of thing, but thankfully, Heriot-Watt does have opportunities for you to do that. So taking advantage of them is important.
I've not been in touch with people from older years.
Have you done anything for contacting students maybe outside of Maths Cafe?
We made some small group. We meet like a few times a week online, I think. Not every week, but sometimes we meet just to discuss and ask how is everybody doing. I suppose it was quite helpful.
I'm part of a Discord for computer science for my year, which is actually, a particularly active Discord. So I think that's been good.
So I attended a linear algebra revision session held by the Actuarial Society. So that was really helpful. It was like held by fourth years, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they just went through some practice questions, really broke down like the simpler tools and the type of questions you might face in an exam if you were taking an exam. But it was essentially to help us with the assignments, which was quite nice.
Do any of you do group studies?
I think it probably is helpful, but I don't do it. Mainly because I don't really know many people on my course. But I do study with other people doing other courses occasionally. Generally, though, I find I get distracted more easily, so I find I get the majority of my work done when I'm alone.
I don't think there was like anything set in stone with me and my friends, but we would often like discuss problems together, but there was not like a set timing, we're going to go do this every week. But yeah, I think it's important that you don't do everything alone. Like, it's important to have your own time to kind of understand the material. But when you're struggling, don't just sit there by yourself. Like, definitely reach out to others.
Yeah, that's definitely a really good point to make. We had a couple of groups where we would do that sort of thing, kind of just loose, talking to each other about stuff we were struggling with and just, comforting each other when we struggled. It can be really helpful. I remember that we had on the Linear Algebra Canvas page, we had a meme section where students would post like memes out of their struggles. And honestly, it was all that kept me going some days.
It was the most relatable thing ever. I loved that page. It was great.
Do you ever attend office hours with the lecturer?
I think near exam time, I would make full use of office hours. I'd be going, asking all sorts of questions. And they would be really helpful. So I do recommend your assignment time. It's good to make full use of those office hours.
Yeah, I agree with Alana. I think if you don't find it necessary and you've had a really good week, then focus on doing your own work. But around exam and assignments, you never know what you could not be aware that you're missing. So attending them will be quite eye-opening.
Okay, thank you very much. And maybe see you around on campus.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
See you about.
Bye.
Bye.
Everything was very in-depth and sufficient for me to like understand the content. So I didn't require like any additional resources. So I didn't go into the recommended book.
Like, weekends are a last resort, because if you keep on relying on that, burnout is a serious problem that you face.
Think about what it feels like to get an A.